The ceasefire came after the urging of Pakistan, a key mediator. Islamabad has offered to host negotiations between Washington and Tehran on Friday. For more, let's bring in Horizon's Middle East and Africa anchor Jumana Basachi in Dubai. And Jumana, how likely is it that this will translate to a durable ceasefire?
That is the big question on everyone's mind, Linda. And I will say it has been a dramatic 12 hours here in the region. I think everybody went to sleep, perhaps anticipating or expecting the worst after President Trump's latest Truth Social post in which he threatened to kill an entire civilization. And of course, he woke up to the news that a 2-week ceasefire had been agreed to. Now, this after an intense diplomatic effort put forward and spearheaded by Pakistan. And as we understand, and even President Trump credited China to bringing Iran to the negotiating table. So a lot of back-channel diplomacy has gone throughout the course of the evening. President Trump putting up a post about 90 minutes before that 8 p.m. Eastern time deadline, saying that they have agreed to the complete, immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. And on the back of that, the U.S. will suspend their military operations for a couple of weeks. Now, it's important to note here that Iran, too, the Iranian foreign minister, also put up their agreement, so their principles, and they have said that they are subscribing to this ceasefire. But for as long as this ceasefire holds for the next 2 weeks, any vessels looking to pass through the Strait of Hormuz will still need to get approval from the Iran armed forces. They've also overnight released their 10-point principles for which they would like to see a full cessation of hostilities. And if you look through those 10-point proposals, many of them are non-starters as far as the U.S. and broader Gulf regions are concerned. So I think there's still a lot of questions at this point as to whether this ceasefire can actually translate into a durable and permanent end to the hostilities. But one thing we know for sure is that it provides a reprieve and it walks us away from the brink of, truly an escalatory situation where military operations keep ramping up and we keep seeing the destruction of civilian infrastructure.
Dan, talk to us about the role that Pakistan has played in this. I mean, is this a huge surprise? A country that has never quite negotiated a peace deal before?
Yeah, I mean, Pakistan emerged in the past couple of weeks as a key interlocutor between the U.S. and Iran. And it's really been in the making over the past year. If you look back to early last year, Pakistan had sort of been isolated by the Biden administration, which had really poured a lot of its efforts into courting India as a counterweight to China. Fast forward to last April, May, you had the fighting with India. You had Trump intervening in that conflict. And Pakistan was just ready to declare that Trump helped broker this ceasefire with India. And India was not ready to declare that, as we know. And it led to the U.S. really a downturn in ties with India and also very close ties with Pakistan. So in particular, their army chief, Asim Munir, went to the White House a couple of times. So, and not to mention, we had a story in this a couple of weeks ago, that Pakistan used crypto diplomacy to also boost ties with Trump's family business as well. So all of those things led to Pakistan being in a good position now to help broker this deal. Remember, they sit
a lot at stake for Pakistan, too. It is on the brink of an energy crisis.
Yeah, certainly. Economically, they need that oil and gas flowing. So they are right next, they're neighbors with Iran. They have a defense treaty with Saudi Arabia. They also have close ties with China, and they have close ties with the U.S. So they're sitting in a good position with all of those key players. And as you mentioned, they need that energy. And so the more they could play a role, the more they can secure supplies that they need to keep their own population.
And then you talked about China. Some say perhaps China was the real power broker here, that it was China that actually sealed the deal, so to speak.
Yeah, there is reporting from the New York Times and others that there was a last-minute intervention by China to get involved. We know that Pakistan and China had a joint peace proposal last week. Of course, China is the biggest buyer of Iranian oil. They would presumably be involved in helping to finance any reconstruction after the war. And they're just a key economic partner for Iran altogether. So we're still trying to report that out, what kind of exactly went down behind the scenes and what pressure China put on.
What role, if any, might China play in this?
Well, China's been floating the Iranian economy now since the JCPOA, since the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. They've put $400 billion into Iran's $400 billion economy and have not seen the return on investment. And if you look at the amount of oil that China depends on from Iran, they do have a say. Without China, without Russia, Iran is really left friendless in a way. And, you know, the way they've treated their divorce attorney Qatar and their divorce attorney Oman during this conflict has further isolated the regime. So China played a huge role. And this is in China's interest. It's also in China's interest and Russia's that Iran does not leave the non-nuclear proliferation treaty. And that's something that they threatened to do in this conflict, and they've walked away from that. And I do believe that's because of China and Russia's pressure on the regime.